Voluntary and involuntary bankruptcy. Now, we talked a lot about this. We're going to see actually numerical examples. How does it work? What are the amounts, and kind of how do we deal with the ability to petition someone involuntarily into bankruptcy? Bankruptcy law provides protection for debtors facing financial distress by granting them relief through the automatic stay, which begins as soon as the bankruptcy is filed. Now, again, this halts collection efforts except for criminal or spousal child support matters. We saw those exceptions earlier. Within 45 days of filing, the debtor must provide information on their income and debts. Now, we said this can be voluntary or involuntary. On voluntary cases, individuals do not need to be insolvent to file voluntarily. They receive an order of relief upon filing. And for involuntary cases, farmers and charities cannot be forced into bankruptcy. We saw that as well. Involuntary bankruptcy is initiated by creditors when the debtor is not paying debts when due, and creditors must be owed at least the minimum amount, which changes every 3 years. Make sure you memorize that and you're familiar with it. For fewer than 12 creditors, one or more creditors can initiate the process. For if this individual person or entity going through the process owing money has 12 or more creditors, at least 3 creditors must participate. This is something I would memorize and be familiar with if you ever get a question on bankruptcy here. Now, there's no order of relief in involuntary cases, and creditors who wrongly filed may face lawsuits for damages and punitive damages, again, like kind of coming after them if they tried in bad faith to force this debtor into bankruptcy. All right, here we go. We've got scenario 1. We've got a debtor with the following outstanding debts. This is fewer than 12 creditors because there's just creditor A and B, owing a total of $18,000 between the two of them. Now, in this scenario, the debtor has 2 creditors and owes them that combined amount of $18,000. For our example here, and on the next slide, we're going to use a required minimum amount of $16,750. And that's just the number. Again, that is a number that will change year to year. So make sure you check that out in our resources. And the combined amount of $18,000 is greater than that. Now, since there are fewer than 12 creditors, creditor A and or creditor B can initiate involuntary bankruptcy proceedings. Now, let's move on to the next one and see how that works out as well. Scenario 2, we've got 12 or more creditors, and here look at that list. You owe a lot of money to a lot of different people. Now, in this scenario, the debtor has 12 creditors and owes them a combined amount of $28,750, which is also above that required minimum amount in this example of $16,750. Since there are 12 or more creditors, at least 3 creditors must participate to initiate involuntary bankruptcy proceedings. Now, for example, creditors A, B, and C, who are collectively owed $14,000, we see A, B, and C right here, adding that all up, they could join forces to initiate the involuntary bankruptcy process since they meet the requirement of having at least 3 creditors participating, and the total debt owed to all creditors is above that $16,750 threshold. So we're seeing how we piece it all together. Good examples of what you may see on the exam. Let's see more examples. We've got Swift CPA is an unsecured creditor of Trek Co. for $20,000. Now, Trek has a total of 9 creditors, all of whom are unsecured. Trek has not paid any of the creditors for 4 months. The question pertains to Chapter 11 and involuntary petitions. In this case, what are we dealing with? Well, Swift can file an involuntary petition in bankruptcy against Trek, and that's fair. Let's see why. When there are fewer than 12 unsecured creditors, any one creditor who is owed at least $19,000, which that's the example we're using for this. I know it wasn't presented. This is just me coming up with another question. In unsecured debt or more may file an involuntary petition in bankruptcy. Now, in this case, Swift is owed $20,000, which is above the threshold, which again, that's what we're using here. We used 16,000 something in the prior slide. Here we're using 19,000, which is above the threshold, and there are fewer than 12 unsecured creditors. Therefore, Swift may file an involuntary petition in bankruptcy against Trek. And lastly, a debtor who is not paying debts as they become due is subject to being involuntarily petitioned into bankruptcy under Chapter 11. Just running through situations, examples. Hopefully this is helping. I know this is helping because this helped me get through the exam in my attempt, and you'll get through it on yours. Talking a little bit more about that Section 341 creditors meeting. Well, that creditors meeting, it's a mandatory meeting held within 20 to 40 days after the order for relief in a bankruptcy case. Now, the purpose here is to allow creditors, the bankruptcy trustee, and the debtor to discuss the debtor's financial situation, ask questions, and address concerns. All interested parties must be given notice of the meeting. This is going to help to ensure transparency and providing an opportunity for open communication about the debtor's assets and a proposed repayment plan. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.